Hi guys, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila, where we are working to inspire positive, radical social evolution by uniting mission-driven humans. I'm so excited. I am welcoming Pod Family to the podcast today. Samantha Porter Grinney, she's a fellow podcaster. Her podcast is called Samantha's West. It was created for young moms and families as a highly curated harbor to shop and learn. Samantha, with help from her best friend and brother, Scott, envisioned luxury goods with meaning, giving back, and a podcast to tie it all together. This human is out there on the mic telling the truth with a phenomenal sense of humor. And today we are talking about family and balance and how you manage all of that with grace. I did not know Samantha long before we started talking about family experience. She has a very outside of status quo family situation that she shares, and she shares how to manage it. We're all kind of in motion on managing family around the holidays and just day-to-day life, and it's not easy, and there's really no handbook. So this human really does it well, and I think her wise words of managing family, especially in tougher situations, are really gold. So listen to her good words, and hopefully your holidays might be a little bit easier. If not, keep the tequila close. Check it out. We will be on YouTube, and listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Cheers.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm super excited today. We have Pod Fam in the house. I met this human at another podcasting event. She's got a podcast. I'm super excited to talk about not only her podcast and what she's going on, but her incredible grace around managing family. We are coming off holidays. We've got a ton of holidays coming up, and family is always a tricky balance. I know so many of our emotions come from spaces of love, but they're not always the most graceful situations. So Samantha's here to school us a little bit on managing that grace in families. Yeah.
You know, my family's going to listen to this and they're going to be like, does she have the right Samantha?
Well, this will be good for everybody's family, probably, except for both of ours, but that's okay.
Right. Exactly.
No, we're going to give everybody gold stars. But here's her quick 411 on her podcast, because I really want you to tune in. She's got a lot of cool things going on, and I love her background, marketing, branding, and all things high-end fashion, which you know we're here for. But Samantha's West was created for young moms and families as a highly curated harbor to shop and learn. Samantha, with help from her best friend and brother, Scott, envisioned luxury goods with meaning, giving back, and a podcast to tie it all together. Without further ado, Sam, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here on the other side of it.
Yes.
It's different.
Do you go by Sam, by the way? I don't know why I just called you Sam versus Samantha.
Either or.
Okay.
You know, the older I get, the more I go by Samantha. But, you know, my dad still calls me Sammy Rose. So.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so tell us a little bit about the family. And I think it's when we were talking on our podcast, obviously, I was fascinated. I'm like, what is the line on what you talk about, what you don't talk about? And I've struggled with this. So I'm being fully transparent in this podcast, but like, give us some background and how you're good at all this.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. So I always love to drop the bomb on new people. I'm like, oh, my husband's 20 years older than me. And everyone's like eyes like jump out like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with you? Or, you know, do you have daddy issues or who knows? And I'm like, no, I just was young and I was working in fashion in New York City. And this cute older gentleman bought me a tequila. And the next thing you know, 10 years later, a kid, he came with 2 kids, twins. I came with a dog. And we built this life together. And, you know, here we are navigating co-parenting, age gaps, stay-at-home mom, working dad, finances. That's a big one. Teenagers now, all the stuff.
You're disrupting so many labels. And I like this because I'm actually on the other side. I usually date younger, and that's a whole realm of stereotypes in that. Cougar, you know, I'm comfortable with all those, but it's more like, oh my God, you're 41 and single. What's wrong with you? What's going on? There's like some big reveal in there. And I'm like, no, there's not actually.
just living my life. Like, yeah. I don't know. I fell in love with an older guy, whatever.
Exactly. But I like it because you do, I mean, this was 10 years ago. So even in 10 years, we've made some strides around stereotyping certain things, but you are pretty good. It sounds like from just managing some of these labels, and the girl always gets it more than the guy. Like for a guy, it's like, oh my, it's like high five. You get a younger girl and da 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 da.
Right. My husband's claim to fame when we first started dating, I actually got in my first car accident. I was 24 years old and I couldn't rent a loaner car. I was not old enough. He loved telling everyone I'm dating a girl who's not old enough to rent a car.
It's there's the difference between the two.
Yep.
There it is. Did you guys have from the get-go a really open conversation around age and kids and everything?
Yes, we did. So I mean, I grew up in New York City. And like, so, you know, I grew up a little bit faster, probably too fast. So at 24, I had no issues with the idea of settling down, but I made it very clear to him, like, I want to get married and I want to have kids. And he said, if we go the distance, I will give you one child, but you have to understand that I have twins already. And now on the other side of it, like think, oh my goodness, financially, just your time, your energy. We're very happy, very full family.
Yes. Yeah. One kid is a lot, 3 humans, and twins are a jungle. Can you talk about your first date? I love this so much.
Oh, when we met?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we met at a tequila bar, and you know, I was like telling my best friend at the time, Taylor, like this like older guy won't stop looking at me. And then she looked and saw him and was like, oh, she's like, go see upstairs to the bathroom. And if he follows you, I'll let you know. Or with his eyes, not actually follows me. That would have been creepy.
I was going to say.
And he did. Yes. We came down, we approached them at the bar. You know, we got some free drinks. He invited me to a wedding, like randomly. And, you know, we've been together ever since. But our first official date, he flew into town and asked me to pick him up in a car. And I was like, I don't drive. I don't pick up gentlemen. Gentlemen pick me up.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Wait, so
what? Old school.
What was the first encounter though around the funeral?
Oh, that was the first time I met my in-laws. Oh,
even better. Okay.
No, this is okay. So I'm Jewish. That's my background. My husband is Catholic. Another thing to add to the mix, actually. Yes. And he brings me home because Grandma Bernice passed away. So he calls me and tells me, and in our Jewish religion, it's like you are buried the next day by sunset. Like it is a very quick turnaround. So I tell my mom and she's like, oh, are you going to go tomorrow? And I'm like, no, it's next month. She's like, what are they doing with Grandma? I'm like, putting her on ice. I don't freaking know. This is so weird. So he takes me to Minneapolis. He lives an hour outside. We go to the church and it's an open casket. Ugh. Another thing in the Jewish religion we do not do. So there's Grandma Bernice. My father-in-law is an ex-mortician. So he's in there adjusting Grandma. Everyone's looking. I'm like hiding in the corner. And then they had me walk down the aisle with them, with Grandma. And then there was like a gong, which Michael told me is really a church bell. I had a little bit of an anxiety attack. And that was it.
And the rest was history.
Although, did I tell you the worst part that happened recently?
I don't think so.
I don't know if I knew you at this point, or I knew that after we first met. My son inherited an iPad from my mother-in-law because it like, whatever. And he loves to scroll through pictures. And he's like, Mommy, who is this? And it was a picture of Grandma Bernice in the casket.
No, they didn't clear the iPad. They gave it to him.
No, my heart is like pumping out of my chest right now, just like retelling, looking at this sweet old woman who I never met with like,
what?
Weird.
So this actually like prefaces the conversation so well because, and family is just hard in general, even if it's like picture storybook perfect, which no one's is. You've got religion and age gaps and viewpoints. There's always
and something.
Yeah, generational views. And it's not just like, I hate my family or I love it. Like there's so many layers to all this. And at the base of it, I mean, everybody for the most part wants to do the right thing. But then as we get older, we want to show up authentically and we change as we, you know, we're individuals. So it's hard to fit back into that unit like we once did as kiddos. And there's no rule book to any of this. Like there's no good way to manage it. Even if we've done therapy, which I think we both have, life coaching, you name it. Yeah. And it's, even then it's still like an unpacking thing. And it's hard also if you've done some of the work and other people haven't. So that's a whole podcast.
We go to therapy for people who don't go to therapy. Yes.
Yes, that should probably be the title of this podcast, Nike. So at what point, okay, when you're noticing, so, you know, you're now dating or engaged to this older guy, you've got your own family stuff going on. Are your parents divorced, married?
My parents were married for 20 plus years, but they are divorced now. Yes. Okay. So they've been divorced since before I was married to Mike. So he only knows them like that.
Gotcha. Okay. So my parents actually divorced later in life as well.
Okay.
At what point were you like noticing the family dynamic shifting and like around holidays or gatherings when things were really starting to shift and you had to be a little bit more intentional about your behavior?
Oh my goodness. So I don't know if it's because my parents and my husband are closer in age than I am, but like, it's like silly how well he gets along with my family. Like it's almost to the point of like annoyance. Cause like a lot of the time they take his side over mine, which is like, but Obviously I am not close in age with my in-laws. And since we have an age gap, it's even like a bigger level because like they're almost like grandparent age to me instead of in-law age, if that makes any sense. So
Sure.
I mean, they're lovely. They're lovely grandparents. Here I am. And I learned my lesson before, but you know, we just don't have a lot in common, you know, besides like we love dogs and it is hard. And I don't think there's a lot of we celebrate Catholic holidays or Christmas holidays with them and that's that, you know.
Yeah. You just kind of make it work.
You got to. But like, you know, like my family, we curse, we love a glass of rosé, a martini. When I'm at my in-laws, I'm like, seltzer water, please. Cause I just still, after 10 years, I'm not really myself. Like,
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Did I not answer the question? I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. No, I was just curious, like, when did you like really start to become aware of like, I've got to be conscious of my actions, or I want to intentionally show up to make this work because it's important to me. Cause I think when you're younger, you just show up, you go to holidays, you're not really like paying attention. But as we get older, like, and people
honestly,
get married
day one. And
really?
I think a lot of that was because of the age gap. Like when I showed up for that funeral, like I mean, I always plan out my outfits to the point of like nausea, but like I wanted to be prim and proper. I wanted to look a certain way. I didn't want it to be like, here's this blonde 24-year-old growing up, showing up. Like, and it's just really carried on. My parents were really big on like manners and etiquette also growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they were like, respect your elders. I remember I like wrote them like a handwritten thank you note for like, you know, having me in their home, including me and whatever. Kind of weird now that I look back, thank you note for a funeral. But yeah, it's always been like that. And I think just because of the age gap and trying to like live up to expectations of like what I was supposed to like be like, and it's still like that.
Yeah. How do you manage some of the things? I think that's good. I love that you're like, my family was big on etiquette. And yet before that, you preface it with like, you say curse words and rosé martinis. Yeah. It's so turmeric and tequila.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's like, it couldn't be more like napkin in your lap, no elbows on the table. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Like, and then it's like, give me a fucking glass of rosé. It's like, I can't.
I'm with it. I like all the, you can wear all the hats. Was there any point where, I mean, there was like such deep tensions and you have like pro tips on like maybe how you manage coming out of like a disagreement or being around someone like you absolutely like, it's really difficult to be around?
I'll tell you, I made a really big error on my podcast and like, I was on a mad hunt to get a new dog for my son. And my mother-in-law she shows dogs. Like that's like her passion. That's what she does. And she wanted to help us find a dog. And I admit I gave her too much, like, you know, I didn't set the boundaries. How about that? Like, and she ended up getting us a dog that didn't work for our family. I've never rehomed a dog in my entire life. Like I honestly was that person who like, ew, you're rehoming a dog. You can't take care of your dog. Like, no. We got a German short hair pointer. If anyone knows them, they're so special, but do not get one unless you have like 15 acres for them to play with. We ended up rehoming him. And I spoke on the podcast how it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I guess she listened to it and she texted my husband and I felt like shit. I felt really, really, really bad. Like I get on the podcast and I'm like, you'll never believe. I asked my mom to pick me up at the airport and she was like, hell no, get a driver or something. And no one cares. But like everyone has different sensitivity level. And I had to fall on my sword. I had to apologize. And I think the podcast has been a little different ever since.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Do you think it was a good experience? Like you learned from it? Like it was a positive like life experience?
It 100% was. And it's like, once you put stuff out there, whether it's on social media, whether you write someone a letter, an email, a podcast, like, you know, you can't get out of anything anymore. Everything is there to stick. And it's something I teach like my bigger kids too, especially with social media. Like you don't put stuff out there that you don't want the world to see. And it was so real. It was so authentic. It's my most listened to podcast of 50 plus 60, 70. And, I censor myself too much now. Like there's a lot of real stuff that goes on and I'm just too caught up with not wanting to hurt feelings. I don't want to use my family as a platform to get listeners, but like, you know, if I'm really, really upset that I had to, you know, sit through another sober Thanksgiving meal. I want to be able to talk about it. And I just made that up, but yeah.
I think that's really deep intel though, because that's kind of like the life metaphor. I think it's like it's love and loss. Like you fall hard early because you don't know any better, and then your next go round, like your heart's open, but you're a little bit guarded because you felt like the pain of like the breakup or the unfilteredness. Or I mean, it's always. But I also do think I think the lessons are always good, but you've got to remain authentic. And I think my version, or at least hope for myself, is that I get better at managing people not doing what people want me to do. So like being okay with that disagreeing, being like, I don't want to hurt anyone, of course.
Right.
And at 41, I have to stand in my truth. And like, if we disagree on something, I mean, like that's gotta be okay. And a part of me is a people pleaser, but I think my family probably gets the most real version of me more than anything. Cause like, I don't know. I just can't fake it. I have this inability, as good as I am, like PRing some things. If I don't want to be somewhere or I don't want to be a part of something, like you see it. And like, there's just not enough tequila changes it. Like it's just there. And that has served me and not served me in my life. But like you're saying, I think you just learn.
That's the balance of it all though. Like sometimes, I mean, oh my gosh, me and my husband disagreed so hard on something the other day, like where it doesn't happen, like to the point where it was like almost a fight. And even the next day I was like, I'm sorry. And I love you and I respect you. I'm like, but I really do feel this way about the situation. And it's so stupid. It's not even worth. So I think just like taking a breath and like realizing that it's okay to agree to disagree and move forward is important. And sometimes we're not going to be able to get out of that bad situation or like where I don't want to be. And happens.
Well, disagreement is real. Let's talk about boundaries a little bit, because this is where it's like you go to therapy for people that don't go to therapy, because boundaries are hard. And also if you don't understand boundaries, it's hard to give them to people that don't know what they are. So this is a very deep experience. I always try and go back to myself. I'm like, what can I do better? I'm far from perfect. And I do have strong opinions. I'm deeply protective of my family. So when I see certain situations.
That's why we're therapists. We always want to like give people the best version of ourselves and work on ourselves. Totally. We must have both spent a lot of time talking.
Well, so how have you got good about boundaries and how do you like execute them?
Unfortunately, boundaries tend to only happen when stuff goes bad first. Like it's never just a boundary is set. It's like something happened and now we need to set the boundaries. And it sucks. But there's like growing pains and boundaries too, where people learn them. And it really sucks if people don't respect them and you have to like cut them off. Luckily, it hasn't happened in family. It's only happened in friends where I've had to cut off because people didn't respect boundaries. But it's also really hard when family thinks your boundaries are like stupid, let's say. And I know that's a silly word to use, but if I give an example, I'm going to be in the doghouse again if my in-laws listen to this. They like to pop in unexpected. And I am a hard no with that. And for so many levels, like, you know, if my house isn't spotless, if I'm walking around naked, I mean, not that I walk around naked, but you know, my underwear, just whatever. And they don't think they're like, we're family. Why would you care? And I'm like, because I care. You live an hour away. You have an hour to let me know. You don't pop in.
Oh, that would not be okay.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. No. Well, I've had friends because my house is like very revolving door. People are like, you're alone all the time. I'm like, no, I'm actually like humans are here all the time. Like my family comes through here, which is great. But I need a heads up. I think it's very bizarre. I'm 100% walking around however I want, or I have dogs. I have gates to watch. Like I do not like the pop in on anything. And I'm very good reciprocating that. Like I'm on my way, or what are you doing tomorrow? Like, no to the pop in. But I think generationally that's hard. And so I think the key with boundaries, like the first step, and let me know if you agree with this or if you have a better way, but it's just communication is like step one.
Communication's everything.
It is. So what do you do if they don't get it? Like, how do you just keep drilling it in, or like, how do you handle that?
I think it's handled different ways, based on who it is and what the boundary is. Like if it's me and my friendships, or me and my family, like I can take full ownership and control and be like, you know, that this isn't being, you know, respected or accepted. But like to set boundaries for someone else that like someone else's family or someone else's friends. Yeah, that's even happened with one of my husband's friends that I don't like. It's very hard. It's hard because you're relying on someone else to carry through the communication and to enforce the respect. And, you know, we can't be in control of everything.
Yeah, I know. And I think letting go, like that constant mindset of surrendering to what we can't control has been a very, I know exactly. Take a shot now. It's very, it's difficult to like, I'm here to let go because also I just get exhausted and burned out. And there's a lot of moving parts. So it's like, okay, I'll let go because I'm fucking exhausted. But on the flip side, like mentally letting go and not getting into like mind traps of like overthinking things and like repeating and then creating story. It's hard to like disconnect from that. Have you been in situations, and I do want to talk a little bit about this because this has kind of happened with my family. Your dad likes to date a lot younger.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us about like some of these dinner experiences? This was, I was
gosh.
so glad we crossed paths because we didn't even know each other long, and some of this came up and I love this girl. This is perfect.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's like, it's part of like my narrative. It's part of like, my dad is my best friend. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I talked to him already today. I love him and I adore him, but you know, I think he got married really young and was married for a long time. And now he's single, living in Miami Beach. And you know, he loves to date girls between the ages of like legal to like 25. I'm like, sometimes if we hit like a 30 or a 33, which is my age, I'm like, clap, clap, clap. But yeah, I think he's just trying out a little bit of everything. And it's really funny when he brings some of these girls over and my son's like, oh, another one of Papa's friends are here. Or like the dinner conversation when you realize that like the person was born in like the year 2000 and like they have no idea what you're talking about. Like, they've never seen the movie Clueless before. Like, what is Clueless?
What?
Like,
oh my, okay.
My 13-year-old daughter, maybe that should just say about the quality of person. If you don't know what Clueless is, like, come on now.
Yes.
No, it's hysterical. Or like going out to dinner with my brother and my husband and my dad and like a girl. And I'm like, is this girl legal to drink alcohol right now? Like, those are really weird questions to be asking yourself. And then you have to be like, well, what does she really want from my dad? But sometimes they're nice. Sometimes they're flops. Flops
is wildly underused. I love that.
Yeah, they are though. And Wes thinks everyone's his babysitter. And my big kids though, my 13-year-olds are like old enough to know what's up now. So it's like extra awkward. Like we went on a family vacation 2 summers ago. Yeah, 2 summers ago. And one of the girls like only wore thong bikinis, like not like the tushy ones like you see like the girls wearing now, like legit like what I wear underneath my like leather pants, kind of like tight pants, whatever. And I'm thinking like either my 13-year-old son is like mortified or he's having the best vacation of his life. Like, oh yeah.
Wait, so how do you? So okay, so we've got dad, like teen-ish girlfriend that's legal, and then like always legal. Your older husband, like how does anyone say anything or do we just roll with it? Like, is this a good example for how society can go?
I would love to be a fly on the wall, especially like where we were, like, and I'm not even going to say because it doesn't matter, but like, I'm sure we raised eyebrows. Actually, one time, this was a different family vacation. My dad got remarried. He was married to a girl my age. I don't know if I told you that. He was married for like a few years. And we're on another family vacation. And this is like right when COVID happened. And we're at a lake in New Hampshire. And we're filling up the boat with gas. And my son is sitting in his then step grandma's lap. I don't even know what the fuck you call a girl his mother's age who was married to his grandpa, his ex step grandma. And the gas attendant, gas doc was like, oh, is that your son? And she said yes or something. And I was like, what? And I was like, no. I'm like, get ready for this story. That's my dad's wife. I'm the same age as her. That's my kid. That's my husband. Those are his stepchildren. Those are her friends and family. And I'm just like the connect the dots in the family tree. And I'm like, this is weird. This is so weird. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, but also I think, nowadays, like anything kind of goes if it works. Like we don't need to be in this like stereotypical thing. And I think if you guys can find balance in all that and it working, I hope more people see it because it's a really graceful example of like how good things can be outside of like the stereotypical situation.
No, like I'm sure, sorry again, my in-laws, I love you. I'm sure my in-laws who have been married for 50 plus years and are traditional and have 3 children and look at my dad. I mean, I know because they told me and they think it's like, their eyeballs are popping out of their head again. But like, my dad's my best friend. I love him. He is the best grandpa in the entire world. He comes with like some really weird friends, but I'm not going to not let my kids grow up the way I grew up with like fun and summer vacations and all this because I might not care for who my dad is sharing a bed with, I can't let it affect me. And believe me, it has, my brother has a bigger thing when, because my brother and I grew up differently because of the divorce. Like I don't want to call him jealous because he's not, but it's very hard, I think, to watch your dad like spoil people when like he wasn't as much a part of your life to spoil you. And then maybe there's a lot of layers.
There's layers, yeah.
A lot of layers. But at the end of the day, I always remind myself, and I'll tell all your listeners to it, is it worth not being a part of this person's life because you might not agree with it? And for me, it's not worth it. Like, I'd rather be with my dad. I'm going to go visit him on Wednesday just because.
That's really good advice. And I think it's also a noteworthy point to highlight that different siblings can have different experiences and you can have different viewpoints. And that's all justified because we really, even within families, like we do grow up so differently and have different views on the same situation. Have any of these girls like tried to, I think as a female,
yes, I've had to block people. I've had to block. Oh, no, sorry. I didn't even know what you were going to ask.
You already know.
I've had to block people.
I think with women, they expect like this friendship immediately and like this latch on. And I'm a deeply busy human and it's 9 and I'm a business person and I'm aggressive and people think I'm from New York all the time. I'm from Colorado, but I talk fast and I'm straightforard and whatever.
How fast are we both talking right now?
So
I didn't even realize that you're like vibing off each other.
They're going to need a nap and a Tylenol, but they'll be okay.
Oh my gosh.
So people always think that, but but they're different kind of women to me, which is totally fine. And I love all these different perspectives. And I truthfully don't have a lot of extra time. So it gets misconstrued. Have people tried to latch onto you and like have expectation because you are the girlfriend or the girl of the friend?
Yeah, I am like the magnet for these kind of people. My husband and like I kid around. I'm like, I'm not nice. Yeah. Like, I don't know why the people feel the need to open up to me. But like some of his girlfriends will like tell me about like intimate details like that you don't want to know about anyone's sex life, let alone your dad's, or like calling me and asking me questions. Like there was one girl, man. Oh Lord, we dropped her off at the airport and I literally shook my husband's hand and I go, let's make a bet. Are we ever going to see this one again? I had to block her on Instagram, email. Poor girl. Poor girl.
How do you handle some of these, or like the one maybe that like he was married
to? How do I handle
it?
I'm not having a drink, but usually with a drink, it's like sitting there and listening to some like 24-year-old girl crying to you, asking you if your daddy is dating anyone else besides them. Like, that's weird. It's weird. And it's not awkward. And I'm a magnet for it.
I'm so glad you're saying this because I get the same thing. And then I end up looking like the jerk. And I'm like, I got to put these boundaries up really early, not because it's even personal. Sometimes it's just like, cause I don't have the energy and we're different and we're busy. And like, maybe they don't usually have a lot of girlfriends or something. And like, there's expectation, I think, cause I'm the female and it's one of my biggest challenges to navigate.
It's so interesting that you like say all this and like, you're so I'm not good at this when it comes to family or anything that's to do with family. Like I let it all in, but like with friends, I'm really starting to learn now. Like I only have so many hours in the day and like, I just can't do it sometimes. Like I just physically, mentally, emotionally, like I can't do it.
Yeah.
I gotta keep going.
And it's not always about them. Like that's what I struggle with. Like the plate is full and it's not even about you.
Yes, exactly. The hardest thing for me right now in my friendships, I'm just really taking over this conversation. Sorry.
No, you're the guest.
It's very weird for me right now, but I'm enjoying it. I didn't have a second kid. I only had one kid, and majority of my mom friends went on to have number 2. And I don't give a fuck about diapers or bottles or nap time or any of that. Like we're in the home stretch. Wes is about to be 5. He doesn't have a bedtime in the summer. He doesn't wet himself. And I'm just like, not that I don't care because it sounds insensitive and it's not, but like I have so much other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like mommy and me, Jim Barry is just like, I don't. And then they, I have been migrating to other friends that their littlest is my little's age. Mm-hmm. And it's like a weird kind of dynamic because it's like not new friends, but it's just like, we're in the same places in our life. And gosh, it's just hard trying to cater to other people. You just got to do yourself.
You can't though. Yeah. And there's always a good saying when I kind of get in those situations where I'm trying to like rate the cost benefit analysis on what do I do? Cause you do care about these people, but I do think people and situations come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so it's okay if you move on and you go on to the next thing and you have a different group of friends and like, you don't have to care about things you think you're supposed to care about. I don't have kids and I talk about my dogs all the time. So people are like, I don't care about dogs and back squats and like probably a lot of things I talk about. So like, then
I don't know if I could be friends with someone who didn't care about dogs. I'll be really honest with you.
This is why we're
That's
friends.
kind of like a deal breaker. Like if your dog doesn't like who you're dating, you're like, they must know something that I haven't figured out yet.
I know. Well, that's been a challenge because, like, as you know, my dogs are my babies like you. And then if people have kids, I get very sensitive if like the kids are around the dog. So I get very picky about that. And it's like, that's a hard conversation because people don't look as dogs as kids, even though they're like my kids. So like there's just.
Okay. I am a proud mom of one biological child but then my stepchildren, and I just lost my dog, as you know, a couple days ago. And like, I am a real human mom, whatever the hell that means. That was my child that I lost. So like, I just, if you don't think that doggies are your kids, then another person I don't want to be friends with. Okay. Like, sorry. Bye. Bye.
I think the takeaway is you find your crew, your tribe, and then like you really put in time and energy where it does fit, because there is only so much time. But when you do find your crew, it's really, really nice to have them there, and it's quality over quantity all day long.
I agree with that with everything. And like you much rather have quality over quantity. Like you don't want to be a friend collector and then it turns into a bunch of acquaintances. I rather have, and the older I've gotten too, my friendships have gotten so much realer. I don't know if just in a different place of life or like bigger things are going on, but like the friendships I have now in my 30s versus like my 20s are incomparable. You can't.
Well, life's going on and like things do get complicated. There gets layers and you need like your girl squad or your best friends. Like even obviously I'm not married, but like or even in serious relationships, I always say like have somebody else. Don't have that one person be your everything, because that relationship can get so complex, and that's great, but you really need a crew of people, and that could be two people, one best friend or something, just so it's not all on one person. And you're diversifying some of this conversation, but to have those really rich relationships in your life and friendships, I mean, they're such a blessing. There's no money, there's no sex, there's no, I mean, it's so pure. It's just it's worth it from my perspective to have a few good ones than a ton of acquaintances, like you just said.
Yeah, I agree. You're funny. No sex, no money, no.
I mean, it's pure. There's no incentivize anything. Like you're straight up showing up because you want to hang out with that person and you care like about their soul. Like you don't care what they look like.
I know when you put it like that, I guess that is true.
Yeah. People, I don't want to say sleep on friendships because that sounds like a weird pun, but like they don't really fully see how important they are, I think, until it goes away. And I think I've lost friends, but I also think things worked out how they're supposed to. But like things have not worked out. It's like, man, that was a really important situation in my life. And then oftentimes I'll be like, and it went away for a reason. But the good ones that keep coming back and stick around, I think, are really critical. So it's equally as important from my eyes to handle grace with those situations, like family.
It's funny. I've always, not that I've been quick to cut off people, but like I made it clear, like my family, I'll do anything to preserve, and like friends, like I kind of could let fizzle out a lot easier. And I've never gotten into like an altercation, argument, disagreement, whatever, with a friend. And then like they didn't know, or they said something that hurt me, and like went back and told them. And I just did that for the first time not that long ago. I said to one of my best friends, like, hey, this happened. It hurt my feelings. I know you didn't mean it, and I love you. And I'm like, oh, this is like a really big growth thing. Like realizing and valuing that the friendship is that important to not like fester and sit on it. And that was the first in my 34 almost years of life to do that.
I think that's because it's easier to say nothing and just disappear. It's so much easier to dig up drama. And head out. But you do have to understand the cost in that. Like, do I really want to let this go? Or can I just nip it in the ass with one conversation?
Right.
Like sometimes it's not as big of a deal as you think it's going to be.
No. And it was so over and done with. And I was just like, I told, of course, my brother, who's again, talked to him 50 times a day, how nice it was and how much I value the friendship that I wasn't even scared to do it. Actually, that's kind of like when I introduced my husband to my dad, everyone was like, weren't you nervous? And I was just like, I love this guy so much. And he loves me that like, I'm not scared of like whatever might happen, which turned out to not be a big deal at all. So I think that's also a good barometer. Like when you trust yourself enough to know it's the right thing or the situation, and it turns out well.
I think so too. I agree with that. And I think you got to be in pretty evolved space. Do you think when you like fully fell in love, you were in like personal evolved space? No.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, you're young, but I think you're an old soul.
100%. That's what we connected on was our love of the Talking Heads, and not many girls that are 33 love the Talking Heads. Although my cute little boy loves Psycho Killer and Naive Melody. You should hear him sing. He was singing on the dock yesterday. We live on the water. We Will Rock You. And he was like, we will rock you. And then he fell off the dock So now all day today, he's fine. He's a great swimmer. He's on swim team and everything, but he's like, we will. And he's like, splash. And he pretends that he's falling in the water. So yes, we're raising our son to be a little old soul as well.
I love it. And I like that you like don't get hardcore in these rules and nap time and all that. We didn't grow up like my parents never had nap time. Like that was never
it's chaos in here, but it's amazing. If like we were out late last night for Father's Day and Wes slept late today. I know not everyone gets that lucky, but like it works for us.
Oh God, I love it. Well, I think you guys check out what Samantha has going on. We can talk about a lot more things. I might actually have you on in like 6 months just to check in because I love like your like Samantha's take on life. You should maybe do a podcast, the second one that's just like Samantha's take on like the randomest things. But because I think you are so good, like you are just so transparent about stuff. And I think that's part of your gift and your gold. But it's good. And I love that your family's out there and you are on the mic. Kind of maybe it creates some ruffles, but I think you're really presenting a message of like breaking up status quo. And I think there's way more families like yours and people really think. We just don't see it or hear about it or talk about it. And it's management, but it works. Like just when you look at something, you're like, how does this work? It works. Yeah,
it does. You got to want it. If you want it, work for it.
What is like your closing piece of advice in managing something that isn't status quo? We'll keep it really general.
Oh gosh, just don't be afraid to be who you are. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be someone who has an opinion, always someone who's going to be annoyed or like it or doesn't like it. Just do you. It might turn out to be a really good thing. I think it did for me.
I've done a lot of like coaching therapy, everything human optimization I'm in. And I was in this one, I can't remember if it's therapy or coaching session. And of all the profound things I've read, I'm getting back into fitness. And this therapist was like, and I'm like, I thought CrossFit or training was the problem. And he goes, literally dramatic pause. He goes, sometimes we get it wrong. And I'm like, oh shit.
I like that.
There you go. Like that's
sometimes you need that little like, and then there you go.
Yeah, it's simpler, but Samantha, where do we find you? Give us your Instagram, your podcast. Tell us about it.
I'm Samantha West. So that's Samantha with an S. There's my lovely list right there. WEST, that's my son's name. And SamanthaWest.com. It's also our boat's name if you're ever in Florida and see one go by. Wait, just kidding. Not very relatable. Sorry, I don't even know why I just said that.
I love it.
But yeah, and the podcast, Samantha's West. Come visit. We love to chit chat.
Go check out this New Yorker telling it to you straight. I love it so much. We'll check in, but until then, go see what she has going on. And I love the intentional around your podcast, but I think you should show up for the humor if you're a future listener. So what's going on.
I laugh at myself a lot. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.